Good morning, Mr. Ahern.
Good morning, Trevor.
Now, American presidential visits to Ireland now seem to take on the flavour almost of pilgrimages. What do you think this one actually achieved?
Well, I think the President of the United States of America, or for that matter, most heads of state are always very welcome in Ireland. I think President Biden, for 50 years, has been a very good friend of Ireland in all his roles down through the years. He's been here many times. He's been here twice as Vice President. And I think, that he addressed the Dáil, building up that relationship with the parliamentarians of today, moving around the country as he did from Northern Ireland to the border counties where his relatives come from, to the west of Ireland, and meeting fairly well, huge amounts of people from various organisations. That strengthens our, contact with the United States, which is hugely important to us, as you know. The enormous amount of American firms that are in Ireland, the huge amount of investment that we receive from America, and the amount of Irish companies that are now operating in America very successfully.
Well, as you know, President Biden's affection for Ireland, plain as it is, hasn't entirely been taken in a positive way here. He said that the UK should work more closely with Ireland, support the people of Northern Ireland. What do you suppose he meant by that remark?
Well, I suppose he was referring back to the fact that prior to Rishi Sunak, there was very little contact between the Irish government and the British government, and the institutions of the Good Friday Agreement, and particularly the British-Irish Council, hadn't met for a long period. Successive prime ministers hadn't attended. I think the last one that attended before Rishi Sunak's attendance in November was Gordon Brown, and as your last interviews go, that must have been back 13, 14 years ago. So I'm sure he was referring to that, because it was a bit odd, quite frankly, that countries that are so close together couldn't get a British Prime Minister to attend a British-Irish Intergovernmental Council for that length of time.
But I think you, of all people, will understand the sensitivities here. The former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster, says that Joe Biden, and I'm quoting here, hates the United Kingdom. Do you think that there's some part of him that is basically anti-British?
No, I don't. Isn't he working very closely with the British government and Ukraine? Isn't there non-stop contacts between the British government and the United States? And, we had to live in the years where we found it very difficult, Trevor, to get involvement from the United States that didn't go through the British government. There was a time that we were told when I was younger that Northern Ireland was none of our business, that it was totally a UK matter. Now, thankfully, we've all matured and got a bit of sense and cop on and moved on from those days. So, nowadays, thankfully, there is dialogue and we've built up relationships. But, I think it is good for President Biden to remind people that that's the way it should be.
Mr. Ahern, I know that you're a legendary diplomat in many ways, but I'm sensing that behind this is a sigh of relief that Boris Johnson is no longer in number 10 Downing Street.
No, to be honest, it doesn't really matter, Trevor, to me who the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is. That's a matter for the United Kingdom. But you'll appreciate that we found it very difficult to deal with Boris. He seems to be a very colourful guy and a very nice guy. But, we had the trouble with the backstop, we had the trouble with the protocol, we had a lot of trouble with Brexit in the first place. Quite frankly, I don't think we would have had the institutions in Northern Ireland down on and off for the last 6 or 7 years if it hadn't been for Brexit. And it's caused us untold difficulties and problems. But, we try in Ireland to live in the future. We try and get on with things. And, I think what we now need to do is Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister. He has really done a good job in our estimation here in the last 6 months. He has invigorated the efforts to get everything working in Northern Ireland. A huge amount of positives have come out of the Good Friday Agreement. It's not just in terms of the the peace, but an enormous amount of the various parts of the agreement, the legislation, the demilitarisation, you know, dealing with the prisoners, you know, dealing with so many of the north-south issues have gone away. We now are left with the political one, with the institutions. And in fairness to Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, he's really trying to resolve that matter. The Windsor framework, I think, nearly solves all those issues. There seems to be a few outstanding ones that have to be resolved. And I hope to meet the Prime Minister on Wednesday, because this week in Northern Ireland, all of the people who were involved 25 years ago, including Tony Blair and President Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and all will be in Northern Ireland for the next 3 days. So hopefully we'll have a chance of you know, being able to communicate with each other.
Well, as one of the architects of that agreement, and you'll, as you say, you'll be meeting with the other people who made this happen, will there be a tinge of disappointment in that group, you, Clinton, Blair and so on, that a quarter of a century on, the devolved government is still in abeyance?
Yeah, that is a disappointment, Trevor. It's you know, we set up the system based on power sharing, where everything has to be agreed on a cross-community basis. Now, the problem for us that's been difficult, and if one side are unhappy with something, they can pull out. Now, that's what at the top of your piece there, you said, where I said there should be a review. I think you can't have a situation in a democracy, you know, that every time somebody is unhappy with something, that they can just pull down the institutions. You can imagine if that was to happen in Westminster or happen in Dáil Éireann. So we have to try and find a way of dealing with that. And, you know, if we've brought it down in different things over the years. And the last time when Sinn Féin were involved, it came down over Cash for Ash, which was an environmental grant system. This time it came down effectively over an issue to do with Brexit. But we have to try and find a way that it only comes down when there's elections, and we have to find a resolution to that. But it has to be done on cross-community basis. Northern Ireland is still a divided society. We've made a lot of progress, but there still are problems of integration. And so when we make any fundamental changes, if it's not in cross-community consensus, in my view anyway, everyone doesn't agree with me, that it has to be done by agreement, and it's the only way we'll make progress. But that is the disappointment. I think I'm happy with so many things we did 25 years ago, but the institutions not being up and running is very unsatisfactory.
Well, you know, one of the, I guess, your triumphs was that you had to deal with what I suppose many people would say is one of the most difficult personalities in Irish politics, indeed politics anywhere, the Reverend Ian Paisley, and you got it across the line. Bearing in mind that experience, what would you be saying to his successors in the DUP now when they say we're just not going back into the institutions until we get our way on, for example, the protocol?
Well, you know, politics is the art of compromise, and I dealt with the late David Trimble for a long time, and as you've said, the late Ian Paisley. And all the time we were able to make the progress because we were prepared to compromise. Then you've had, you know, First Minister Mr Robinson came in with Martin McGuinness, and you know, I think Peter Robinson, Martin McGuinness, I think ran the institutions very, very well, and it was on the basis of compromise, was on the basis of trying to see where they could get a middle ground. And you know, you do not make much progress in politics if you don't do that. And I think we have to get away from, you know, this is the position and no other position is satisfactory. I mean, it's not tenable or sustainable, and it's not in the interest of the people in Northern Ireland. There are huge issues in Northern Ireland, as there is everywhere else, including here in Dublin. But, you know, the only way of dealing with them is...
I can't let you go away without asking a question which I suspect our viewers in Ireland would like to know the answer to. There have been a lot of presidents wandering about the British Isles in the last couple of weeks, and more to come with Clinton and so on. Now, the Irish President, Michael D. Higgins, will step down in 2025. I note that you've recently rejoined your Fianna Fáil party. Are you going to be the party's candidate for president next time round?
I'm a member of the Council of State, Trevor, and I work, advise the President whenever he seeks our advice. He's 2.5 years to run. I'm a big supporter of the President, and traditionally in our protocols we don't get into that issue till about 5 or 6 months before the election. So the answer to that is all in the future.
I'm not hearing a no. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahern.
Thank you, Trevor, and good morning to you.